Brian Slammer back here. Today I wanted to talk about artificial intelligence. It's really taken the world by storm recently with the release of ChatGPT 3 back in November of 2022. I've had a chance to play with it a little bit, but it has raised a question in my mind, not just this particular AI, but others out there similar to it. That question, of course, is AI art really art? Can AI be considered a valid tool in the creation of art? These are some of the issues that I've been struggling with, and I think a lot of people have some of the same questions as me. So what I did is I used AI not only to help me articulate these thoughts that I've had in my head, but also to work with me in creation of some new and interesting images.
Describe briefly the birth of modern photography.
That works. This is what the AI gave me back. The birth of modern photography can be traced back to the late 1830s, when a number of technological advances revolutionized the field. The first of these was the development of a stable and sensitive silver-based photographic process by William Talbot in England and Louis Daguerre in France. This allowed for the first time the creation of permanent photographs on paper and made photography a practical means of capturing and recording the world. Another important development was the introduction of the camera obscura, a device that projected an inverted image on the outside world onto a flat surface. With the advent of the photographic process, this device was adapted into the modern camera, which made it possible to capture a permanent image on the scene projected onto the film or plate. The invention of new, more portable cameras and more convenient forms of film also helped to popularize photography and make it accessible to a wider audience. The introduction of roll film by George Eastman in the 1880s made photography even more convenient, as it allowed for the creation of multiple images without the need to reload the camera after each shot. These technological advances marked the beginning of the modern era of photography and laid the foundation for its continued evolution and development into the medium we know today. Next, I asked it,
Describe the struggle the art community had in regards to accepting photography as a valid medium for creating art. Include some time references.
The struggle for photography, this is the answer the ChatGPT gave me. The struggle for photography to be accepted as a valid form of art by the traditional art community lasted several decades. Photography's rise as a medium for artistic expression coincided with the development of modern art movements, such as Impressionism and Expressionism. And many artists and art critics initially dismissed it as a mechanical process with little room for personal expression or creativity. In the late 19th and 20th centuries, photography was primarily seen as a documentary tool, and it was not considered a fine art. This began to change in the early 20th century with the development of the straight photography movement, which sought to use the camera as a means of capturing reality in a straightforward and unadorned manner. Straight photographers, such as Alfred Stieglitz, challenged the notion that photography was not a valid form of art by showing their work in galleries and advocating for its recognition as a legitimate medium. However, it wasn't until the mid-20th century that photography began to gain widespread acceptance as a fine art form. In the 1950s and 1960s, artists began to experiment with the medium, pushing the boundaries of traditional photography and incorporating elements of painting, sculpture, and other art forms into their work. This period also saw the rise of the new photography movement, which sought to expand the limits of the medium and challenge traditional artistic conventions. By the end of the 20th century, photography had firmly established itself as a valid form of art, with many photographers achieving international recognition and success. Today, photography is widely recognized and respected as a vital part of the art world, with exhibitions, galleries, and museums dedicated to its display and interpretation. Next, I asked it,
Describe the transition of film-based photography to digital photography. Include the impact on the human experience the modern smartphone has had.
So I hope by now you can see where I'm going with this thread. And what's interesting about ChatGPT is that you can have a thread going. You can build upon your conversation just as you would having a conversation with a normal person. So this is what it gave me to my last question. The transition from film-based photography to digital photography marked a major turning point in its history. The shift from analog to digital technology brought about many changes in the way people take and experience photographs. In the early days of digital photography, the quality of digital cameras was not as good as that of film cameras, and they were much more expensive. However, as the technology improved and the cost of digital cameras came down, more and more people began to adopt digital photography. The key advantage of digital over film was the instant feedback it provided, allowing photographers to see their images immediately and make adjustments on the fly. Another major factor in the transition from film to digital was the rapid growth of the personal computer and the internet. The ability to store and manipulate digital images on a computer made it much easier for photographers to organize, edit, and share their work. The rise of social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram further fueled the transition as people began to share their photos and engage with others in new and dynamic ways. The impact of the modern smartphone on the transition from film to digital photography has been enormous. Smartphones have put a camera in the hands of billions of people, enabling them to take and share photos at any time and from anywhere. This has transformed the way people experience and capture the world around them, as well as the way they communicate and connect with others. Being able to use our phone, something we almost always have with us, has also made photography more accessible and inclusive, allowing people from all walks of life to explore and express their creativity through the medium, most of whom would never call themselves a photographer or an artist. Overall, the transition from film to digital has been a major movement in the history of photography, bringing about new opportunities and challenges. It has also changed the way people experience and interact with the world through images. Now, this is where you see where I'm headed with this. I asked it the final question.
Now draw a parallel between that concept and the struggle that the contemporary art community is having today accepting any use of artificial intelligence in the creation of art. Conclude with an answer to the question, is AI art apostrophe real art?
Is AI art real art? That's ultimately the question. This is the answer that the AI gave me. The struggle for the contemporary art community to accept the use of artificial intelligence in the creation of art is similar to the struggle that photography faced in the 19th and 20th centuries. Just as photography was once dismissed as a mechanical process with little room for personal expression or creativity, AI art is often seen as lacking the human touch and the emotional connection that is often considered to be essential to the creation of art. Critics of AI argue that the use of algorithms and computational processes to generate images and other forms of art takes the human element out of the creative process and reduces art to mere technical trickery. Proponents of AI art, on the other hand, argue that the use of AI can open up new avenues of expression and creativity, allowing artists to explore new forms and concepts that would be difficult or impossible to achieve using traditional methods. The question of whether AI art is real art is ultimately a matter of personal interpretation and belief. Some people believe that art must be created entirely by human hands and that the use of AI takes away from the authenticity and the value of the work. Others believe that art is about the expression of ideas and emotions regardless of how it's created, and that AI can be used as a tool to bring these ideas to life in new and innovative ways. In conclusion, whether or not AI art is considered real art is dependent on individual perspectives and beliefs about the nature and definition of art. What is clear, however, is that the use of AI in the creation of art is a topic of ongoing debate and discussion in the contemporary art community. Its impact on the future of art remains to be seen. So, what are my thoughts on this? Well, as I say, I've been a photographer for 40 years, so I've seen a lot of changes. When I started out, I started with 35mm format, kind of went backwards from there, because then I went to medium format and large format, sheet film, 4x5. This is what the AI was describing earlier, is having to take only one picture at a time with a sheet film. You put in one sheet of film, click, and that's it. Then you got to take it out and move it. Switching to 35mm, where you can take 36 consecutive pictures on one roll of film. Well, that was kind of revolutionary at the time. I remember working in the camera stores, like I said, in the late 80s, and one of the first digital cameras that came out, I think it was called a Canon Zapshot. I think it was like 640 by 480, so it was very, very low resolution. It was only in black and white, and the only thing you could do was look at it on a television. You couldn't print it, you couldn't we didn't have computers then, so you couldn't do much of it. So it was really a novelty, and at that time, I think it was running about $1,500. So it was a technical gadget for very few people. Fast forward today and look at the smartphones that we have. They're just unbelievable. They're quite incredible. So using AI as a tool to help me edit or enhance photographs, I think it's a very valid use of the tool. Using it to generate images from text, that's again getting to be a little more gray area in my mind. However, if a human is saying to the AI, create an image of a duck on top of a mountain wearing hiking boots, the AI would do that, but the human is giving the AI some input. So perhaps that in itself is the creation of art. Well, I recently had a chance to play with one of these AIs. I was able to feed it 20 images, and on any given day I don't look what most would consider normal. So I was kind of interested to see what kind of results I would get. An hour later it spits out over 100 images, 8 different styles, 14 samples from each. So over 100 images, it's quite a bit to go through. There were some really awful ones. There were some that had really goofy mistakes. Eyes seemed to be particularly difficult. Either I looked cross-eyed or one eye was all gibbled up in several images. However, in some of the images that it created, I was blown away. It was really quite incredible. Some of them are photorealistic. So if you put one of the AI images next to my one of the images that I took with a digital camera, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference between the two. So I had a lot of fun playing with that. Then I decided I was going to push the limits a little bit, push the bounds a little. And I again fed the AI 20 images, but I selected from my cosplay images when I'm dressed up like a beast, dressed up like a Viking, whatever. I selected on purpose some unusual images. Again, an hour later, it spit out over 100 different samples, and they were quite fascinating, quite interesting. Some of the mistakes it made was very funny, like a sword growing out of a braided hair. And another one was, I was wearing a necktie, but it braided the necktie from the beard, and then the necktie was hanging off the beard. It looked really funny. But I'm going to show these to you. I'm going to let you have a look at them, and I would really like to stimulate some dialogue on this. What are your thoughts? Is AI art, real art? Is using AI, is that a valid tool for the artists, for the art community? I think it is, but I'd love to hear your response. This is Rye Slammerback. Thanks for joining me.